Today, we're starting a new 5-day series called The 5 Fears Secretly Running Your Life. We all know the obvious fears like the fear of failure, the fear of death, and the fear of the unknown. But this series is going to cover the fears that aren't so obvious, the ones hiding in everyday life.
Life is beautiful.
You know the guy Neil Gaiman from the Tim Ferriss podcast, the guy who wrote Coraline?
Yeah, he's got a great voice and accent.
Yeah, he's
Fantastic.
got one of my favorite Tim Ferriss podcast episodes. But the reason I bring him up is because he tells this great story about being invited to this party with some of the most famous and successful people in the world.
Mhm.
Okay, and they're all sipping champagne, they're eating caviar, and Neil Gaiman is standing in the corner because he feels like, what the hell am I doing here? These people have done all of these incredible things. And he's waiting. He says, I'm waiting for somebody to tap me on the shoulder and tell me to get the hell out of here because I don't belong here. And the funny thing is, he says, I actually did end up getting tapped on the shoulder, but it wasn't from someone telling me that I needed to get out. It was from someone who told me that they felt the same exact way being in this room.
Wow.
And this person goes on to tell Neil Gaiman that all these people have done amazing things, and all he's done is go where he was told to go. That's all he's done in his life. And Neil Gaiman's like, what do you mean you went where you were told to go? He's like, I was told to go to the moon, and I went to the moon. The guy he was talking to was Neil Armstrong,
my God.
which was the person who was the first human being to ever walk on the planet Earth. I mean, on the moon, sorry. And in that moment, Neil Gaiman knew that if Neil Armstrong could feel like an imposter at this party of successful people, that everyone at some point in their life deals with this imposter syndrome because it just didn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah, so I thought this story was perfect to set up the first fear in this series, which is the fear of being found out, also known as imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome, that term, or this idea of feeling like an imposter, actually is as old as 1978. That was the first time this word became a thing.
I was going to say, I think the feeling of imposter syndrome has been around forever, but you're saying the term was created.
Imposter syndrome.
I got you. Yes.
They originally called it the imposter phenomenon after they noticed. So Dr. Pauline Clance and Dr. Suzanne Imes, or Imes, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but they noticed a pattern in high achieving people that the more they accomplished, the more convinced they became that they had fooled everyone around them.
Yeah.
And they noticed that like every time these people would get a big win in their life, they would say, oh, it was just good luck. And basically they never quite felt like they were supposed to be where they were at in terms of their achievements. And I feel like this really affects everyone. There was a study that I saw as I was doing research that this affects 70% of people. I don't know where they came up with that number. They pulled it out of their ass. But I think it affects just about everyone who's a high achiever.
I mean, yeah, I think we can speak to this from personal experience as entrepreneurs. You quit your job and you go be an entrepreneur for the first time, and it's this whole new identity you have to take on. And then you start experiencing some success and getting in some rooms with some other successful entrepreneurs. And I feel like we had our Neil Gaiman moment many times throughout our journey.
Yeah, I feel like we've had so many lunch meetings with entrepreneurs.
We once had dinner with, what was his name?
Who are you
The
talking?
rapper.
French Montana.
French Montana. I still think about that. I'm like,
Yeah,
what are we doing at dinner with French Montana?
Yeah, but I actually didn't feel imposter syndrome with him. I feel imposter syndrome most of the time when I'm around someone who's like super smart. Like, you know, when they speak and the words that come out of their mouth, their like vocabulary is just wild, and you could just see the way their brain works a million miles an hour.
Yeah.
And they're making, oh yeah, my revenue this year is like 45 million or fucking who knows, even 40 billion. Whenever I'm around those kind of entrepreneurs, like the ones that are just like levels ahead, is when I start to feel like, okay, maybe I am not meant to be an entrepreneur. And I think that's the biggest problem that imposter syndrome creates in our lives, is this feeling of doubt in ourselves. It starts to get us to believe that we don't belong here and maybe we should quit. And there were so many times where in those meetings with these other entrepreneurs, I felt like maybe I should just quit because I'm never going to be like that. But honestly, looking back, I feel like the version of Mike that was meeting with these entrepreneurs is a very different version of the one that I am today.
How
And
so?
I've built so many of those skills that I thought I would never be able to build, that I was witnessing in the person sitting across from me.
Mhm.
I just think that you don't factor in the fact that you can build skills. Like you can build the thing that you're sitting in front of. And I feel like there's probably another version of an entrepreneur who would sit in front of me 10 years into this entrepreneurship game that I might make them feel imposter syndrome, right? Because it's a relative game. There's always going to be more and more and more. That, and that's the thing
Well, then
about it.
go back to what you were saying though, because in the study that you cited, it seemed like, or well, at some point you said the more successful people got, the more they felt it.
Yeah, so there's something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And the Dunning-Kruger effect states that the least skilled people are often the most confident because they don't know enough to see what they're missing. So basically, the more skilled and intelligent you get in life,
Mhm.
the more you know how much you don't know,
Mm.
right? So the less confident you actually become because you realize, holy shit, there is so much more to go. That's the Dunning-Kruger effect. So that I think is what happens is like the more you know, the more you realize there's so far to go. It's like when you start something new, you have that blind confidence, but then you get into it and you're like, oh, okay, wow, maybe I'm
So,
not cut out for
so
this.
basically, the wisest people we know don't know shit.
Exactly right. Yeah. But yeah, I think the reason I wanted to make this episode is because I feel like our listeners here are high achievers and they deal with this fear most of the time at work. I feel like that's the place it shows up the most, especially if you're an entrepreneur. But it can show up in other areas of life too, where you feel like you don't belong in a relationship or you feel like you're not good enough. I don't know, in a group setting of some sort, and that doubt that it creates can really debilitate you and get you to give up way too soon on things. And so, one of the call to actions that I want to end with, or the call to action I want to end with this episode, that I actually did and found it super helpful was to open up the Notes app in your phone and start this list called evidence. And anytime you want to start right now by writing 1 to 3 pieces of evidence from your life that are undeniable facts
Mhm.
of things that you have overcome or things that you have achieved, that when you are feeling these doubts, this imposter syndrome, you can open up this note in your app and be like, okay, there's clear evidence
Yeah,
here that suggests that
I'm
I
not.
do belong.
I'm not a fraud.
I am not a fraud.
So, all right, give me one thing you put on your list as an entrepreneur, because that's, I'm guessing, where you feel like the imposter
No, I
syndrome.
made it about life in general. I
Okay.
wanted it to be something that's just like whenever I feel self doubt in general,
So, all right.
I
So,
go to
give me
it.
something on it.
One thing that I put that was very recent was I just completed the 3-day fast that I talked about. So that was just one piece of evidence that I have power over my mind, that I can get myself to do something extremely difficult. That
Mm.
was one little tiny thing, but there are plenty of other things that I can put in there, like founded a nonprofit that's been around for 10 years or raised over $1 million with that nonprofit. Like there's all these little things that I can put, and
Okay.
big things.
Yeah. That's a really, really cool idea. Is that from what's his name? The guy that we just talked about, the David Goggins, the cookie jar,
Similar
right?
concept. Yeah, similar
Yeah,
concept.
that's really cool. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with us. We love you.
Peace.